Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Giant's Healthy Innovators TV. My name is Barry Shrier. I'm your host. This event is sponsored by Giant Health and a number of other organizations that have supported Giant Health throughout the years. We'd love to thank some of our ongoing sponsors like our knowledge partner McKinsey and Vodafone Business. We love working with you guys and thank you very much for your support. We invite all of our listeners from around the world to join us each week as we bring to you leading innovators in the world of healthcare, technology, and innovation. So this week, I'm delighted to bring you some of the most interesting people that are doing great work in healthcare and tech. And they're going to be talking a little bit about their work and sharing with you their areas of expertise as we all set out together to reach our vision, which is to improve the health and the well-being of people around the world by supporting and encouraging innovation and technology adoption in healthcare. So today we have Paul Edmondson, Ian Davidson, and Andy Ramgobin. Nice to see you guys. Thank you very much for joining today. Really appreciate it and looking forward to our conversation. So we'll begin by just asking each of you guys, please, very briefly to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about the area of work that you're involved in. So Paul, if we can begin with you, please.
Yeah, of course. My name is Paul Edmondson. I'm the Vice President of EMEA for Green Revolution Cooling. We're viewed widely as the Immersion Cooling Authority. And I guess a short synopsis is we provide immersion cooling racks for high density compute requirements, which is typically found across the healthcare and health tech sector.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Paul. Really keen to learn a lot more about that and to talk as well about the partnership opportunities for people in healthcare. Thank you. And Davidson, thanks for joining us and great to have you on board. If you could introduce yourself as well, please.
Certainly, and thanks for the invite. So yes, I'm Ian Davidson. I'm from Dell, but actually more specifically, I'm from the OEM division of Dell. And that's the part of Dell that focuses exclusively on customers who are taking Dell technology, integrating it with their own IP, their own intellectual property, and selling it as a whole solution. My own personal area of expertise and focus within the OEM part of Dell is the healthcare sector. So I look after some of Dell's largest healthcare customers.
It's fabulous. Thank you very much. And looking forward to discussing a lot of the work that you're doing in more detail. Thank you. And Andy, hi, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name's Andy Ramgobin. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Merge IT. And we are delivering turnkey AI as a service solutions into various verticals, but we're focusing on healthcare. And our real creed is to deliver, maximum performance, optimizing cost, and making sure that we're removing barriers to entry for organizations in the NHS that have got stretched budgets to be able to start that journey with AI, but make sure, most importantly, that they get tangible benefits out of the back of any projects.
Brilliant. Absolutely perfect. Thanks, Andy. And I'm very interested in exploring the collaboration opportunities with you as well as Dell and GRC, of course, because I think our listeners will find this very interesting and how these partnerships can bring value together to, for example, the new emerging leaders of hospital commissioning and healthcare commissioning in the UK, the ICSs and the ICBs. So, Paul, could you tell us a little bit more? I'm not technical. I certainly get the immersion cooling, but I think a lot of people who are viewing this won't have heard of that necessarily. So if we could take a step back and you could explain a little bit about that broadly, but also the value of that in healthcare.
Okay, of course. Yeah, no problem. So immersion cooling is a data center cooling technology. It differs from the traditional air-cooled data centers in as much as you are immersing your server, your compute, or your switch into dielectrically safe fluid, which is provided from the likes of people like BP Castrol, Shell, and other leading global coolant providers. They're more akin to providing oil into your vehicle, but as they transform their businesses away from the combustion engine, everything's moving to EV in their sort of domains. Yep. So they're now transforming into providing fluids for immersion cooling. I guess the key differences are, if people are familiar with an air-cooled data center or server infrastructure, racks tend to be vertical, ours are horizontal. So obviously you're dropping the server into the immersion fluid. and that works out to be about 1,200 times more thermally efficient than a typical air-cooled data center.
How much?
1,200 times.
Wow. That's
So,
a big number.
yeah, so, and this is why it's now growing the market for us, not only in the UK, but globally, because
Nice.
the likes of Intel are launching higher powered processors and AMD as well. They're becoming harder to cool within a traditional data center.
Yes.
So
So
that pretty much leads us into immersion cooling.
that's outstanding. No, I just love this technology. So I, for example, have a group of hospitals spread
Mhm.
across a large metropolitan region in the UK. I've got what? I've got basements full of servers, left, right, and center. And with your technology, we can extract, or how do you say it, recover all the heat.
Yep.
And then what?
So that's one of the biggest selling features of immersion cooling is capturing the heat that comes out of the back of the racks.
Right.
So a lot of data centers now will not be allowed to be built unless there is connection into district heating systems. So, and by that I mean that the byproduct or the heat, the waste heat is captured. There's heat recapture, heat reuse. There's lots of different something statements.
Okay. Yeah.
But the benefit is obviously that you can warm up projects we're aware of that obviously Ian and I are working on, heating up swimming pools. From a hospital perspective, the heat recapture could be for hydrotherapy pools, could be to provide hot water to the hospital, or in some circumstances could provide heating for the hospital.
Wow, this is absolutely outstanding. So historically, the hospital will be paying a lot for electricity to power servers, which
Correct.
create a lot of heat. Then they have to pay to get all that heat out of that server room and stick it outside, or power an air conditioning unit.
Correct. Yes. In the traditional setup, yes, that is correct. Yes.
And you replace all that with efficiency in many different angles. And
100%. And through our global alliance with Dell, and you're talking about ecosystem shortly. We have a global alliance with Dell, and the benefit that this brings to the listeners of this episode is that it's underpinned by Dell's global warranty. So
yes,
it gives peace of mind for IT teams that are moving into this new area of technology.
yeah.
That actually the solution is fully supported and warranted by one of the world's largest IT vendors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely superb. Paul, thank you so much. Brilliant clarification, introduction. Thank you. And thanks also for not being too technical. I can still follow you on these ones.
No
So,
problems.
pardon me for asking you to dumb it down so much for me, but I appreciate that. So Ian, tell us about Dell and the opportunity in this collaboration and so forth. This is so interesting and important for healthcare. Of course, among other things, I think an awful lot of our listeners are loosely aware of the extremely important net zero sustainability initiatives that the NHS is promoting. So maybe there's connections there you could elaborate on also.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, to follow up from Paul was saying, though, really, the desire for compute is not getting any less, and processors are not getting any less power hungry. They are certainly getting more efficient, but that they are still drawing more and more power. So, whereas a modern day CPU may only take 50% more power than before, it may be delivering still 2 or 4 times the performance. So they're getting more efficient, but still the actual raw power consumption is going up and up and up.
Sure.
And therefore, these do require cooling. Cooling becomes a big issue for these. And as with all electronic devices, really, about 90% of the energy power that goes into a server is just wasted as heat. I mean, almost, if not 100%, but it almost gets wasted heat. So anything that we can do to lessen the impact on the environment and people's, let's be honest, electricity bill in this area goes a long, long way. I mean, the energy crisis, which we're all suffering from right now over the last 2 years, is having a monstrous impact on anyone wanting to run high density compute. Data centers, hospitals, anyone who needs to run these servers are now feeling the pinch from, unfortunately, the electricity bill required to run them. And so the answer to this, inevitably, with computers becoming ever more power hungry and dense compute requirements, is to what can we do to try and get back some of this energy that we're putting into them in the first place.
Yes.
And as Paul was saying, really, due to the high density these compute systems are running at, immersive cooling is really the only way of doing that, the only practical way of doing that. And as well as being able to having options of cooling these things more efficiently in a smaller area, cooling them quieter, because I'm not sure if you've ever been in a data center in a hospital or mainstream data center. They're incredibly noisy environments. Immersive cooling is near silent, really. It's just a small pump running.
Wow. Nice.
So there are lots and lots of tangible benefits for this. And my role within Dell, at the OEM part of Dell, is to work alongside the likes of Paul here and other partners in immersive cooling, and with my mainstream customers who are in the healthcare sector, to try and marry all these technologies together and deliver a full turnkey solution to the end user.
Nice.
What is worth noting is that we really are at the start of immersive cooling right now. It's still, I wouldn't say it's mainstream just yet, but it's certainly getting that way. Dell is fortunate to be one of, if not the largest IT vendor in the world, and we're looking at this sector very, very, very carefully. And it's very likely that, although at the moment this is being driven by the small OEM division of Dell, in the next 2 years this will be scaled globally, and this technology will be made far more accessible to far, far more people, really. So we're really on the turning point of trying to make compute far more efficient and sustainable, which is a key requirement for anybody now looking to deploy this.
Absolutely. Yeah, Ian, thank you so much for the helpful additional clarifications there. And of course, as we know, not a day goes by without more and more data being created, and the requirement to manage data in healthcare is exploding. It can't go in any direction whatsoever except up. That's uncontroversial, isn't it? Therefore, more data being collected by more sensors, by more gadgets, in more circumstances. The new hospital at home, remote patient monitoring, bringing more data back to the hospital. Therefore, more compute required in the hospital. Therefore, more energy to be, if you will, efficiently managed by you guys, by Dell and GRC. So this is unbelievably important. This is the center, isn't it, of a crucial area of healthcare. Thank you, Ian. So Andy, tell us a little bit more, please, about your work and the relationship with Ian and Paul.
Well, Barry, as the guys have rightly alluded to, the costs are spiraling out of control, not just for consumers, but for businesses. And there's a lot of complexity when we talk about artificial intelligence, machine learning, high performance compute. I did a TV episode last year about this, specializing and focusing in healthcare, and looking to immerse these platforms due to the huge power requirement. Forget how much the hardware costs itself, the power that it generates. So working with GRC and Dell very closely, it's music to our ears, really, because there's sustainable goals in terms of what we're all trying to achieve, but we're also trying to achieve cost optimization and compute optimization for customers. So when we talk about AI and machine learning and high performance compute, you've mentioned, Barry, about data. Storage costs are pretty much always the most expensive in any deployment. And what we find is that a lot of customers save a lot of data. And when we create things like a data warehouse, a central repository of data that you can run things like predictive models, pattern analysis, recognition, we find actually that customers are running these models on huge data sets, when in actual fact, it's about running it on meaningful data. If you think about a data set of, let's say 20 terabytes, for example, which is quite large, in actual fact, you would be far better from a data analysis point of view of focusing in on maybe a fraction of that data, which is meaningful. And when we talk about meaningful, it's about understanding the business outcome and the business problem. So we're really focusing on taking customers on a journey, on a discovery journey with AI and machine learning. So that we can remove that barrier to entry where customers feel, and NHSs especially, have very tight budgets. And rather than looking at spending 7 figures on hardware and software, another 7 figures on power, without really understanding what you're trying to achieve from AI and machine learning. We're coming at it from a completely different angle, starting at the discovery phase and really helping a customer understand how much data they have, what data is meaningful for the purposes of machine learning, the cultural and behavioral business transformation that needs to actually, really we're focusing on making sure that customers truly understand the journey to AI before they invest huge amounts of money in hardware and software. And then obviously you've then got the power consumption that comes with it. So
Yes.
we're looking at just skills and expertise. So helping the likes of Dell and other hardware providers accurately size workloads and platforms for customer requirements. So actually, a lot of these requirements are far smaller than we actually believe them to be. One, in the IT industry, but two, in terms of customers. In actual fact, they're a fraction of the size and the cost that we actually believe them to be. So we're really trying to demystify AI machine learning, high performance compute, and the amount of resource and cost that has to go into it. If we think of data science, it's a term that's widely used and widely renowned. Actually, we are expecting businesses to pay huge amounts of money for data scientists, just as overheads and resources.
Yes.
We've then got data analytics teams and softwares like Power BI and Tableau software. Because these are industry standards, businesses are going out and spending huge, vast sums of money. But in actual fact, a lot of the value from AI and machine learning can be delivered for a fraction of that resource and a fraction of that cost. So we're really trying to tie into value recognition,
Yes.
and cost optimization,
Mhm.
delivering a solution to the business problem. So really helping customers understand what that business problem is before you start
Brilliant.
down that journey. And just
Exactly.
to finish off that piece around the ecosystem, Ian already mentioned turnkey AI platforms. We're working really closely with Dell OEM as well as GRC to build highly performant platforms, but that we're getting the most out of the hardware possible. So
Okay.
things like hardware acceleration, so that we're getting as much performance as possible. And then we're using things like Screen Database, which is a startup in Israel that are maximizing performance and reducing costs around database querying. And that's a huge cost saving to customers. For a small CapEx outlay, they're able to save vast sums of money by reinventing the way that we query data. And
Wow,
the
that's
idea
very
is
interesting.
that all of this goes into a GRC tank. And
Yes.
for hospitals, we talk about edge computing, and I talked about it last year. It's for where you need inferencing of the data and value from the data is close as possible to the hospital. It doesn't make sense to have everything in a data center that's not located on site, that's connected via
No.
a network. We're
No.
talking about building platforms that sit on the site of the hospital that allow surgical precision by machines, not just surgeons, and that are immersed in GRC tanks, allowing for a dramatic increase in power efficiency,
Exactly.
the recapture of
Exactly.
the heat, which obviously
Yes.
then leads into carbon neutral strategy.
Exactly. No, that's absolutely superb. Andy, thank you so much. Lots of different strings which you're tying together here successfully, and a lot of kind of complicated issues, but they can all be brought together under one, if you will, requirement. So thank you, Andy. Paul, if we could bring this back to what Andy was just talking about regarding all these different services and platforms like the one from Israel, and as Andy said, putting that in a GRC tank, so to speak. Tell us, if you don't mind, please, a little bit about the decarbonization framework that we've spoke about before. And if you could just help our audience to understand what that is, the goals of that, and where are we going to reach that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe, the government have obviously set a mandate that the NHS is working towards carbon zero.
Yes.
Talking to a few hospitals in the UK, there are projects that are being, if you like, whiteboarded currently.
Okay.
That's not necessarily just around compute. That's multiple areas of their business that they're looking to reduce their sort of carbon reliance, if we can call it that.
Okay.
But immersion cooling absolutely does go a hell of a long way to support that. Sort of touching on stuff from Ian, touching on stuff from Andy. This worldwide phenomenon of AI and the benefits that this brings to organizations, especially in health and surgical procedure, is going to require higher powered server infrastructure, which Ian touched upon, and obviously the thermal efficiency of the immersion bath that makes it, it's a perfect storm.
Yes.
We as GRC do sit on an NHS, or actually no, it's a government decarbonisation framework,
Okay.
which allows any government entity or agency to direct award onto us. So I believe it was originally created by Guy's and St Thomas's Hospital.
Fabulous. Yeah, no, love to hear more about that. So the decarbonization framework is what? It's a level of approval that GRC has achieved or something?
Yeah, well, we are the only immersion cooling company on that framework.
Right.
So if organisations within the NHS or Red Blue Light or any other government agency are looking at immersion cooling, then there is no barrier to work with us.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, I'm glad I'm not your competition. But having said that, this framework is obviously fundamental. It illustrates the importance of this to British government and to healthcare, and also the strength of the opportunity in the GRC and Dell partnership as well. So yeah, thank you. I'd love to learn more about the whole decarbonization framework. Would that be something our listeners could find online?
Yeah, I believe, it does sit on our website. One final point for me before you go off to the other guys.
Sure,
Andy mentioned about bringing data closer to the patient or closer to the hospital setting. The benefit with immersion cooling is you don't have to make the investment that you would do in a traditional data center. And what I mean by that is you do not have to have a raised floor. So you can literally put our immersion racks in a basement setting, for example. So if there is, I know space is at a premium within hospitals, but wherever the existing server infrastructure is, there's not a necessary need to do any retrofitting. We try and make it as painless as possible for any user of our technology.
Nice, excellent. So, for example, with a particular hospital trust, you mentioned Guy's and St. Thomas's, for example, they would not have to engage in any extensive reconstruction of a venue for the immersion cooling.
No, the only requirement would be from a plumbing perspective to route the cold water in and the hot water out. But typically, the M&E or the facilities team should have the skills on site to be able to plumb that in. So.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that makes it even more attractive. It's a nice additional element to the whole picture, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Brilliant. No, thank you. Thanks, Paul. Really interesting information. So, Ian, we'd love to develop this a little bit more and the activity from Dell. Could you tell us a little bit more about, Dell's involvement in these things like sustainability, issues like as well, what do you want to call it? Developments and expansion of applications of AI. And we've heard about an HPC. If you could also elaborate on that for us, please.
Yeah, well, I think it's fair to say for all businesses, and Dell is no exception, sustainability is right at the forefront of everything we do these days. I mean, we've got various moonshot goals. Certainly by 2030, we pledge that for every product that we sell, an equivalent Dell product we will reuse or recycle.
Wow.
By 2030, 100% of all our packaging will be made from recyclable or renewable material. And also over half the content of the products we make will be made from recyclable or reusable content. It's a major focus for Dell right now.
Nice.
I mean, even now, 90% of our packaging material is recycled. I think over 50% of the plastics in our laptops are recycled, much of which we actually get from the sea. So, Dell, I like to think, is a leader in this area, but certainly it's a key focus to everything we do. Everything we do these days is underpinned by our ethics and focus and sustainability area. I mean, we have to be. We're aware that, the products that Dell produce it's a bit of a double-edged sword. They consume a lot of power, they consume a lot of energy, but equally they do bring a lot of good to the world too. So you may say, well, a server could take 2 kilowatts of power, but equally the amount of insight that could be generating on medical issues, medical analysis, is almost invaluable. So we have to look at all sides of this, but certainly, sustainability of everything that Dell does is absolutely at the forefront of everything we create and push out these days.
Nice.
But it automatically comes down to where can we focus our energy to try and reduce power consumption, to try and reduce energy. And something we mentioned before, and certainly it comes back to one of my major healthcare customers. And I guess this must be true of a lot of customers in the healthcare sector and all sectors, actually. So I work with one very, very large global healthcare company who provides a medical imaging service to hospitals. So you go into hospital, you have any form of medical imaging scan, this gets stored, analyzed, processed, etc. on one of their systems. Now, they offer this solution to the customer as a service, a pay-as-you-go service to the hospital. But over the last 2 or 3 years, their cost base has jumped up tremendously due to the cost of electricity. So that's why hospitals and everyone connected with IT really are focusing intensely. Okay, what can we do to reduce the cost associated with delivering these services to hospitals? So that's very much where we're focused on these days, certainly.
Brilliant. No, this is so important, and I think the pressure, the correct pressure relating to sustainability will continue to grow. And Ian, thank you for sharing. Very impressive about Dell's commitment to this and the targets, the 2030 targets, and so forth that you mentioned. I wasn't aware of those, but like you said, it's compute requirement is growing. It's necessary, but the result is the ability to deliver better healthcare services.
Exactly.
And in fact, at lower cost. And
yes.
An awful lot of new innovations are scalable beyond the single doctor relationship with single patient, which is what we've had for the past few hundred years. So there are arguably exponential health benefits here. And cool to hear about Dell's involvement in them, obviously. Thanks, Ian. So, Andy, over to you, just to elaborate a little bit more on the conversation and the partnership you guys are doing with Dell and with GRC and issues in healthcare that we're talking about.
Yeah, no, I've actually got an interesting anecdote from a mental health trust in England. So an NHS trust that specialises in mental health. And last year we talked a lot about AI and machine learning, high performance compute, HPC, which is basically compute at a very large scale on big, very large data sets. And we talked about protein folding, DNA sequencing, accelerating drug discovery. And these are all the, very fancy use cases for machine learning in life sciences. But in actual fact, there's a lot of other areas in healthcare that can benefit from things like machine learning and AI. And AI in mental health is a little bit less mature than it is in life sciences, for example. So we're doing a discovery package in a phase with this NHS trust. And actually when we delivered all of the different areas that AI could potentially benefit their business, the things that they really picked up on was operational efficiency, not preventative care. So preventative care is very important, but that's not necessarily where you start. When you're embarking on a completely new journey, you don't necessarily try and solve the hardest problem first. It's kind of, pick a problem that's a problem, but that is easily solvable. So we're working with this NHS trust about delivering operational excellence using NLP, chatbots, delivering CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, but digitally. There's a huge amount of research at the moment that suggests that actually patients react very well to chatbots. And actually, there's a lot of technology out there.
I've heard about these,
that can actually pick up on tone of voice, facial expressions, and actually tweak the response. And just the ability to follow up, book follow-up appointments, keep in touch with a patient, building almost a virtual mental health assistant. And when we kind of pitched this back to the NHS, they were really blown away because, an anecdote that they gave us is that to solve the NHS staff shortage in the UK, the NHS would have to employ 1 in every 4 school leavers. And that's really quite...
And it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen because, as they rightfully said, these kids leaving school can earn the same amount of money stacking shelves or doing menial jobs. than effectively going and working on a mental health ward. So,
Yes.
our goal with this, so really, as we're trying to say that we're starting with this discovery exercise, I think this NHS trust that we were working with, or that we are working with, was quite reticent about how much this journey might actually cost them, in terms of actually not just embarking, but delivering a proof of concept and then moving into a production environment. And they were really surprised when we talked about cost savings, and something that we're really big on is cost optimization. So we're using a piece of proprietary software, which is called Code Zero, which is delivering no code ingestion, no code distribution, no code reporting, and no code data visualization. And in basic layman's terms, it means that we are automating 90% of what a data scientist does on a daily basis. So we're not trying to remove data scientists, because they have a huge value in businesses, but there is this myth that we need huge teams of data analysts and data scientists. And actually these costs end up being more than the hardware and the software stack itself. So, we're really, really focusing in on, like, with a laser-like focus on what's the business problem, and really targeting the types of machine learning models, the type of data set, whether that's a big data set that we then drill down in, and we look at child data sets, so that we can really focus on meaningful data that's going to derive real insight and value. So, I think the ecosystem that we've built with Ian and Paul and Dell and GRC is all about delivering maximum performance for the best possible price that's good for the environment. And I don't think there's too many, parties out there that are working collaboratively as an ecosystem to really drive adoption and value. Because as soon as customers really start to understand high performance compute, AI, machine learning, and it's no way near as complex to start as they feel it is, we will end up supercharging adoption. And I think with the decarbonization framework, with the sustainability stuff that Ian and Paul are already working on, with our services layered on top of a best-in-class Dell Enterprise hardware and software stack, and then a best-in-class immersion tank, we're delivering the best possible solution stack for the most affordable price, because of the way we're architecting it and optimizing it. We're not in the game of trying to oversell to a customer, because ultimately the value derived over the long term is far shorter.
Absolutely. No, Andy, very, very interesting and relevant. Thank you for elaborating on that. For example, of course, as you know, we at Giant Health run a big annual national event, which this year, 4th and 5th of December in central London. We exist, as I said at the beginning, to serve UK healthcare commissioners, the people who are in charge of procuring and delivering healthcare nationwide. And not a day goes by without the leaders in procurement from hospital trusts, from ICBs. We've got chairman, chief executives of ICBs speaking at our event. They all say the same thing, which harmonizes exactly what you just said, Andy, which is that it's the providers of ecosystem solutions, like what you three are working on, which is what those large regional and national organizations want to purchase. In other words, they can't buy one thing from one provider. It's too complicated. They're all putting fires out. This morning, we had a recording episode with a large North London ICB procurement leader. And he said, look, I love all this innovation, but all I'm doing all day long is putting out fires in terms of my job and my workload and my budgets. So I need people like what you three are doing to come to me with complete solutions, rather than each individual provider of hardware and software and services trying to, if you will, have those conversations. So that ecosystem thing that you mentioned, Andy, just resonates completely with all the commissioners and procurement leaders that we've been engaging with. So good to hear that you guys seem to get it, as well as the people on the other side of the fence. We don't have too much time to continue this. However, I wish we were actually in a beer garden in some nice pub, and we could have a pint and continue discussing this for another hour or two. This is so important. Among other things, number one, want to invite you guys to come back, maybe in a few months' time with updates and further information. I know our listeners in the UK and around the world will find this relevant and meaningful. But number two, maybe what we could do, Paul and Ian and Andy, is just go around with some summary content. Either if you guys have a particular vision or want to summarize an example of what you guys are doing in healthcare to help everyone else in UK healthcare understand that, a vision for the future. Or like I said, just a general summary closing content would be really helpful. So Paul, if we could ask you to start, please.
Yeah, I guess in summary and in conclusion, and a point that I missed earlier on is around the fluid, and obviously the government and the departments, including healthcare, have got a commitment to reducing their carbon footprint.
Yes.
So working with people like BP Castrol, who are one of our fluid providers, they're investing millions into research and development to actually create carbon negative fluids.
Wow.
So that really ticks the green box, from an ESG perspective and a carbon reduction, and it adds a huge amount of credibility to the solutions that we bring to market. So it's an important point that I missed earlier on. So apologies.
No, thanks for adding that.
But I think in conclusion, we're here to work with our ecosystems of partners. Our core ecosystem in the UK is absolutely working with Dell, although our relationship is global, but also with specialists like Andy that can bring the knowledge of the IT market to bear, but actually being immersed within our ranks.
Nice. Superb. Well, Paul, thank you, obviously. And very excited. Obviously, we started partnering with you guys last year. Very excited to continue growing our relationship and making strong connections across all UK healthcare with GRC and the NHS, both at the trust level as well as the emerging ICB commissioning leaders here. So I'm looking forward to developing that. Thanks, Paul. And Ian, likewise, if there's anything you'd like to add or any summary about Dell's vision and leadership in sustainability and the things we've been talking about with the NHS.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess just following up for the interesting point you made before about you having an earlier conversation with a health authority saying that he was excited about innovation, but he was just focused on putting out fires every day and couldn't necessarily focus on that. I mean, I guess is the point worth noting there, that is where Dell, and in particular the OEM part of Dell, excels. I mean, our existence is solely so the end customer, in the case of the healthcare authority, can focus solely on their area of expertise, what they know about their intellectual property. Brilliant. And leave all the IT mumbo jumbo to Dell and our partners to deliver on a turnkey platform. They shouldn't have to worry about how immersive cooling works. That's our problem, that's Paul's problem, that's Andy's problem. We deliver a turnkey offering, so they can just focus on their day-to-day job. So that's where we're here to help. And certainly going back to the fundamental thing that underlines all of this, yes, I mean, sustainability is just absolutely paramount, and no one can sensibly ignore the environment these days and the impact that their actions are having. And we're super cognizant of that. Therefore, everything Dell and our partners do collaboratively is to try and address that as well.
Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you, Ian. And like I said, really looking forward to continuing this conversation. So let's organize another episode sometime in the future. I think our listeners will find this so interesting. They will certainly want to hear a lot more about it as this is evolving. And likewise, Andy.
Yeah, I think just as a short summary point, we're removing complexity, we're removing costs, we're removing barriers, we're supercharging education and adoption. And I think business is very much about people and partnerships. And myself, Ian and Paul, as well as our teams and companies, are very close-knittedly in together in this ecosystem, working complementary to one another. And I think that's probably the biggest benefit to any customers that we work with, that they've got three businesses, multiple experts from various different areas, all invested in reaching the same goal.
Excellent. Thank you, Andy. Really appreciate that. So look, I'm so sorry we don't have time to continue this interesting and valuable conversation. Challenges in healthcare nationwide and around the world are vast. the pressure that healthcare systems around the world are experiencing are growing. We have aging populations. We have new chronic diseases. We have new escalating costs and challenges in the economy. But what we do know, and the pandemic has demonstrated this, is that technology doesn't simply hold out the promise, but technology does deliver the opportunity for clinicians to achieve better healthcare outcomes at lower cost. So in my mind, you guys are the heroes in healthcare alongside the doctors. And we do know that the 5-year-old mumbo jumbo about AI and robots replacing doctors, of course, we're moving beyond that. And clinicians have a more important role than ever in the future, being supported by technology, not being replaced by technology. I only hope that technology can replace me as someone that has to respond to emails on a daily basis. So we can talk about that later. But joking aside, Andy and Ian and Paul, I'm grateful for your time. This has been an extremely interesting and informative conversation. And the work that you guys are doing, both individually and in your collaboration, is something which is so interesting and important at the heart of healthcare, even though we're not talking about specific diseases, therapeutic areas. We're talking about whole healthcare system issues. So love what you guys are doing. Thank you for your time. Hope we can continue this conversation. And obviously, thanks to Paul from GRC, thanks to Ian from Dell, and thanks to Andy from Merge IT. Fabulous conversation. And we love having the opportunity to learn from you guys. So grateful for your time.
No problems. Thanks,
Very
Barry.
well,
Thank you for the
Barry.
invitation.
Thanks, Barry.
Super. So once again, this has been this week's episode of Giants Healthy Innovators TV. If you like this, please like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. We also want to thank our sponsors and our partners. Today, we had brilliant conversations with GRC, with Dell, and Merge IT. Love to have the opportunity to continue conversations with you guys. Thank you very much. And we'd also like to thank some of our ongoing global partners. Thanks to our knowledge partner, McKinsey. Thanks to Vodafone Business. We love working with you guys. We invite everybody to go to our website, www.giant.health, to learn more. We'll also have links in the YouTube channel to Ian and Paul and Andy's businesses to enable you to learn more about that and to engage with them. So I'm Barry Shrier. I've been your host. Thank you very much. And we hope you've enjoyed this episode.